writer on the show today. I'm so happy to have Dave Gordon. Hi, Dave. How you doing?
I'm very fine. How about you, Ron?
I'm wonderful. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Big news. A new paper is coming out called thej.ca.
It's already out.
It's already out, clearly. It came out the other day, so meaning it's something that needs to get a little bit of more recognition, and I guess this is why we're here today. In order to get the story out, I really want people to know who is this amazing Dave Gordon that I know as my friend and colleague. Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with journalism? Because in order for people to really believe that you are the main man behind this paper, I think we need to build the trust and to know that you are qualified and at the same time have been doing it for many years.
Oh, yeah. I've been doing it for 25 years. I have written for more than 100 publications around the world. About 36 of them are Jewish publications around the world. I've written more than, I'd say, 4,000 articles. And you'd recognize a lot of the places that I've written for. All the Toronto dailies, the Globe, the Post, the Star, the Sun, BBC, Baltimore Sun, Washington Times, the list goes on and on and on and on. And I have been in the newsroom reporting at Baltimore Sun, Pittsburgh Post, Gazette. I worked in an editor capacity for the National Post and Post Media. I ran an online news site called landmarkreport.com a number of years ago. So that is to say that I know the online world. I know multimedia, I know editing, I know writing. And how I got interested and involved in this crazy, crazy profession. Well, I always knew that I wanted to write. It was just something that I had been doing from the time I was very, very young, as far back as I can remember, that my relatives, instead of giving me actual birthday gifts, would nurture and encourage this hobby of mine and get me pen sets and pads of paper to write in. And so I continued that hobby into the days of the word processors and computers. And then one day, a reporter from the Canadian Jewish News, this is going back about 2.5 decades, had mentioned, maybe someday you should send in an article to the Canadian Jewish News, see what you think, might be fun. And that, believe it or not, was my entree into the world of journalism. I not only got to do what it is that I enjoyed doing and had so much fun doing it, but I got paid to do it. And so I realized, this isn't such a bad gig. Well, at the time anyway, before things started to get really crazy in the industry. But I kept it up. I had a job at Post Media, like I said, a job at the National Post, and various other positions in other newsrooms. And here we are today. I'm back. It's almost come full circle where I began in Jewish journalism, but now in the online world.
It's great that you brought up the online world, because what we're noticing right now is a change in terms of media and how it's been given out. When you used to have newspapers, people would pick it up, they would be on the subway and they would read it. And today everybody's on their phones. So do you see a difference between the changes of like back then and today? Are people still that interested in the newspaper, or is it all online?
Well, I would say that there is a segment of the population that holds near and dear the newspaper world. And there's a certain demographic for which this is nostalgic, or for which the online world isn't so navigatable for them. But we're embracing the digital shift as something that most media outlets ought to have by now adopted and adapted for at least a decade. And that includes things like podcasting and videos and social media and interactivity, and making the online connectivity that much easier. Things are just a click away. And that's where we're going now. I mean, the thej.ca is all online, and we've gotten tens and tens of thousands of unique hits, going on about 800 Facebook followers, and all that within just a matter of days.
You have many papers out there that have failed, especially with regards to the Jewish papers. I remember there was a day where we used to have many, many papers in the city, and now, unfortunately, or fortunately for some, the Canadian Jewish News is no longer. And here you are coming in with a paper. What makes you think that the thej.ca will stick around for a long time, and what is the reason that you feel that we need to have a Jewish paper that's for our community?
Well, first of all, let me correct you. I would prefer to not call it a paper, because it's not paper. It's Jewish media, to be more accurate. And yes, journalism and Jewish journalism is facing some serious issues. I mean, the Canadian Jewish News folded, the Winnipeg Jewish Post folded, UK Jewish Chronicle, and I think there was another Jewish paper in London that had folded. Print and distribution and staffing are huge, huge costs. Now, especially in light of what's going on with COVID, where advertisers no longer have the budget or the income to sustain these things. So what makes me think that the online world is here to stay? Well, it's definitely a whole lot less expensive. We are remote. It doesn't cost, there's no overhead. There's no 26 staff. It was put up a story really quick. And we have a unique voice. I think that's pretty apparent. A whole lot of our feedback is that it's because of our diversity, it's because of the stories that we bring to the fore that few people prior have tried to tackle. We represent the underrepresented, and our biggest asset is what I call our orchestra. What do I mean by that? The contributors that we have, Jews of color and we have left and right, conservative and liberal, Ashkenaz, Sephardi, Mizrahim, Arab, and contributors from coast to coast. And that's really what we strove for. And I think that's what's going to make us really stand out in the marketplace, because people are going to see, for lack of a better phrase, the united colors of the thej.ca.
That sounds wonderful, and you know, like, clearly I'm going to be helping you with the paper, and it's something that I'm going to be reading myself. But I wanted to know, why couldn't, like, papers like not papers, but media outlets like the Canadian Jewish News couldn't just transition into an online media as opposed to being in paper and remain in business? When we see failed newspapers or news media, especially within the Jewish community, failing, it's almost as if the community itself is failing, because we're looking at it as like Jewish people will put a lot of money into advertising, into promoting. We're a large Jewish community, especially in Canada. I believe there's almost over 400,000 Jews. So that is big enough to have a paper. And, you know, yeah, you cut some jobs and you just make it online. What makes your paper, or again, not paper, but media outlet, different than everything else that's out there?
Well, I think I touched upon that before, but besides embracing the digital shift, our contributors are people who come with ideas that are fresh. I think this is evident on social media. Our Facebook engagements are wild. Our Twitter engagements are wild. We're ramping up our Instagram. We're going to be starting podcasts and video casts. I mean, just look at what you do on video. And there's a reason for that, because a whole lot of people are engaging in video more so than ever before. I think the statistic, and don't quote me on this, but I've heard this and read this before. It is something like a full half of this generation being like about 20 years old to 40 years old, a 20-year generation, a full half spend at least an hour watching visuals on their mobile devices. Okay, so that is notwithstanding things like Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus. No, things like YouTube and vloggers and shows like this. Every single day, half of them. So we're seeing the increasing use of the digital shift, be it audio, visual, and online. And I think that is the make or break for any media, really. They all have to embrace the digital shift and make it in such a way so that it's compelling and engaging, and have content that keeps people coming back. And it takes a certain kind of uh, mental, really a mental shift in a sense, because you're not building a newspaper page. Instead, you're building online visuals that have to grab people. It's a whole different way of thinking.
Um, you mentioned something amazing that people are watching about an hour of news or media a day, when it comes to videos. But that means that there's a lot more content out there that, is untrue. We're going to use Trump's voice, fake news, and you're talking about CNN. What makes your paper seem more legitimate in terms of not being fake news? Because some people could say, well, there's a Jewish agenda behind there. Clearly they just want to advertise whatever they want to advertise. They want to publicize whatever they want to publicize. So how do you stay true for the people that have the claims that, this Jewish paper may be another fake news type media source?
Fortunately, there's always going to be people who will criticize no matter what. I mean, it's interesting. Not a day after we launched, I started to get emails and social media messengers saying, well, I didn't like a certain article. And because I didn't like a certain article, I want nothing to do with your media. So what I likened that to is I drew an allegory on my Facebook wall. And I said, the allegory is like, I went to the salad bar. I saw spinach. I dislike spinach. I'm never coming back to the salad bar. Uh, the array in which we present uh, news is no different than any other news outlet. We have arts and news and politics and opinion, and how the real test is what people say on social media. What are the comments like? What is the feedback like? And not a single person has said, this is fake news. This is lies. This is untruths. They said, I argue against this. I really didn't like this all that much. I take issue with, okay, great. But because we are a free form on the internet and people discuss things openly, that in a free and open democracy is the way that people find out whether things are fake news or not. And that is the same way that people draw attention to what Donald Trump calls as fake news. There are other outlets holding the feet to the fire, and people who are speaking freely on social media saying what is or what is not true and fact checking.
With Israel being in the forefront of the anti-Semites, these days, as you well know, people will not say anti-Semitic things, but they would turn towards Zionism or anti-Israel or say that's Bibi. Just today, I read a little piece about the Khomeini saying that he's not against the Israeli people or the Jewish people. He's against Bibi Netanyahu and the government, which is a very fun way. How are you planning to distribute the paper in terms of the information that's there? Do you think that you're going to remain pro-Israel, or are there going to be views that are going to be somewhat anti-Israel, or some people will perceive it, or it's just news, it's information, and you will have opinion pieces that may not go with the goal of promoting the state of Israel during this difficult time?
I think we made it clear in the editor's message that the thej.ca is never going to indulge in anything anti-Israel, and we're not going to take pot shots needlessly at Israel. It's not to say we wouldn't criticize Israel where it's merited, but we are we are center to center right. Uh, we will from time to time uh, bring in liberal voices, and I think that is key to being able to be accessible to as many people as possible. You know, the Jewish community is not a monolith of ideology. They go from right to left. We're not going to print anything that's left, but we'll welcome liberal voices. And there is a difference. Um, so your question was what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. Um, yes, we will promote Israel, but we won't give voices to people who will fail Natan Sharansky's 3D test: delegitimize, double standard, and demonize.
It's great to hear. But what happens if you start to receive criticism from the Jewish community, especially from the left? And we have to be honest, a lot of our Jewish community here in Toronto is on the left on many, many issues. And even if you can paint them a picture and show them everything that's going on, they will still have these ideals. I'm going to say things even like the Toronto Jewish Film Festival and the movies that they bring out and the people that they host tend to be on the left. What would happen if you're starting to notice that people are boycotting the paper because what you just said right now, you started off by saying it's very diverse, and then you went back to saying, well, it's very center right. So what if you will start to get criticism that you sort of have an agenda as opposed to it being a free media and people can express their dislikes or disapproval of the Israeli government or Israel itself?
You're asking if people boycott the media? Well, that's just
No,
fine.
no,
That's a
no.
fun.
If people basically, like, I'll give you an example. There are many people who felt that the Jewish Tribune was just, highlighting things that B'nai B'rith was really doing. You know, the Canadian Jewish News was trying to promote things for, people that are spending the money, people that are the sponsors. So there's always somebody that they have to make happy. And in your case, you're saying that the paper is more conservative and more center right. What would happen if a large part of the community will feel that the J is not highlighting their stories because they are more on the left?
Well, I take fundamental issue with your premise, because I don't think the majority of Canadian Jews, or even a large part of Canadian Jews, are on the left. And I make a distinction between left and liberal, right? So I want to call, say, If Not Now or Independent Jewish Voices on the left. And liberal, I would say, is Shalom Achshav. Um, this is a nuance that I can't really get into right now, but um, we will welcome reasonably argued liberal voices, which, to my mind, is where a lot of the Jewish community is. They do tilt center and center left. There's also a fair number of Jews in this community that tend to tilt center and center right, which is what we are probably going to have more of. Um, there are other places for them to digest news that tilt leftward or liberal. We're probably not going to be one of them, and that's just kind of the way it is.
How do you find journalists for this paper? I mean, I know that you've been around the block for a long time. You know many writers. You've worked with many writers in the city. I just noticed a few names like Rivka Campbell on it. Who's probably bringing diversity. Who's a Jamaican Jew. Isaiah Galecht, filmmaker, bringing some stuff. Doron Berger. You're getting a lot of really notable people in the community who are now getting involved. How do you find these journalists, and also at the same time, how do you pay them, and how do you make this almost a job? Or maybe it is voluntary. I actually don't know. So I want to know, what would the process be like, and how can the average Joe say, hey, I really like the idea of the J and I want to become a contributing writer for that paper?
Oh, well, how do you become a contributing writer? That's really easy. Just reach out to us, Dave at thej.ca. a lot of people have come forward to really build this engine, and we've begun by volunteering uh, for the purposes of building this engine to which would we hope eventually be the CJN's replacement. And by doing so, subsequently be supported by ads and investors with the eventuality of being able to compensate people. And so we have 50 plus contributors, people who have actually submitted material to us, and an additional, I'd say 75 people who've stepped forward enthusiastically saying, in due course, a week, 2, 3, they are also going to contribute. So there's this great need and great enthusiasm to be a part of this wonderful engine, this engine which is connecting Canadian Jews to the conversation that they so badly want. They want the insight and they want the information. And because I've been in the business for so long, and because I've been involved in the community for so long, I happen to know a lot of journalists, a lot of writers, a lot of editors, a lot of involved people in the Jewish community. I have my ear to the ground. I know what topics people are hungry for. It doesn't mean I don't ask people for their opinions and feedback, which I do frequently. But this is basically all through many, many years of network and connections. So between myself here in Toronto, other people I know in Toronto, we have, of course, the publisher and the editor in Winnipeg, and people that I've met over the years. I just asked them, will you help? And they all step forward unreservedly. Boom, I have your back. Let's do this together.
What is the ultimate goal? I mean, what is your ultimate goal with the paper? Do you foresee this being something that, is in every household? I know on the week, people are talking about it, or you want to basically, I don't want to say change people's views, but inspire people and get them to be proud of the Jewish community. Or maybe this is something more personal to you as giving back to the Jewish community. So I want to know, what is your ultimate big goal with the J?
You hit the nail when you said inspire, because I think it falls along the lines of the 3 I's that I most want to promote: inspire, insight, and informative. What is our goal? Well, right now we are going to have 2 news cycles a week. And so we're going to fill the page with stories on Wednesday nights and Sunday nights. So about a day, 2 going into Shabbat. And just as the weekend winds down, people can, before they go to bed, start flipping through the stories and get ready for the new week. And our plan in the very short term is to have an email digest that you can download and print, so you can actually have a paper in your hands, free of charge, of what's going on with Canadian Jewish news. Like what I did there?
Yeah.
That these will be the highlight stories of the week. So for whatever reason, you didn't make it to the website, you didn't have time to surf, or maybe you actually enjoy the tangibleness of something in your hand. You want something to read over Shabbat or the weekend. Click, print. Now you've got a PDF of the top 12 highlight stories. And so we have the print edition in a 21st century way, and the online edition.
We have the UJA, and they, spend a lot of money on many things. There's also the J, right? The Schwartz Reisman Center, and they call themselves the J. I want to know, how come they're not coming out and saying there is a need for, another media outlet, that we should have possibly our own show. We should have television programs that cater to the Jewish community. And that would be a great way, to show how amazing the community is, how informed we are. And, it's a cycle. Why do you believe that it always has to be someone like yourself, meaning someone from the community, that comes out and says, we need a change, we need a paper, as opposed to them saying the people on top who get paid a lot of money, and for them, it kind of you kind of have to start it for them to jump on top and then get involved. Wouldn't it be the right thing to do for these big organizations that are raising so much money to come out and say, Dave, we're going to support you right from the beginning, as opposed to waiting to see your success in the next year?
Well, I mean, I don't have a looking glass into anybody's head. And it's one thing I'm very careful to do as a journalist is to not guess. Um, it is about facts, right? So I don't know what goes on in the boardroom of the committees or the advisors, why we did what we did. I can only guess, and I don't even know if my guess is right, but I would say that so long as there was some sort of media that existed, why spend the resources having to create your own? Why reinvent the wheel or invent the wheel when you can just piggyback on somebody? So in the instance of the Canadian Jewish News, no shortage of ads about what's going on with the UJA, and that was a great way for them to market themselves. In supplements, in ads, in advertorials, what's going on with UJ, or for that matter, any organization, any big organization in the city who had money to spend, because that paper went in the hands of 30,000 subscribers and I don't know how many clicks online, but it got to where it needed to go and it was already there.
But really, my question is, how come the community or someone like yourself or like myself or another advocate, it seems like to me that almost like it has to start from the bottom, as opposed to them saying there is a need for a Jewish paper. You know, there's a need for us to spread messages and we will support it. Why does there always have to be someone, you know, think about any pro-Israel organization that's out there. It started with someone in the community that really cared. But yet we have so many organizations that are raising money, telling people that this is what we're trying to do, and yet they're never the ones to put in the money. They're just kind of on the sidelines. And whenever a good article comes out or there's success when it comes to the paper or the media outlet, that's when they say, you see, this is us. We are the Jewish community. I just feel that every time I see real change, every time I see somebody really fighting for something, it's never coming from the top. It's always coming from someone from the bottom. I don't mean us being at the bottom, but I mean we're, you know, professionals or whatever we do, but we're not a part of any big organization.
I don't know. I mean, maybe there's no desire for them to start anything in particular. Maybe it's this perception that whatever it is that they could start would be simply perceived as a house organ, the same way the Jewish Tribune was perceived as a house organ of B'nai B'rith, and they said that it wasn't. I think they wanted people to think that it wasn't a B'nai B'rith thing, but I think that it was a B'nai B'rith thing. And so there are probably two very good reasons why they didn't create any sort of media. Other than that, I have no other explanation.
I want to end off by saying, first off, congratulations on the paper. Again, I keep going to the paper, the media outlet. You know, I'm still old school. I'm giving away my age. But I want to know, what does success mean to you with your new media outlet? Like, when do you say to yourself, I did it? I mean, I believe success is putting it out there, you know, even getting your first news, getting your first online piece. But what is it for you? When are you going to be happy and say, I don't want to use the word I've made it, but this is a real success?
Well, I'm going to say for the time being that we, the team, spent a number of weeks putting together this creation, right? This baby. And success right now means that so many people are looking to us to fill the void. And the fact that they've recognized uh, our efforts recognize us as a replacement, recognize us as the place to go, and that is evident on social media. We've lit up social media and the emails and the contributors. So whatever success I would define, I would say that we are en route to that and much more.
I want to congratulate you on putting the thej.ca together, getting the team
Thank you.
together, and filling in that gap, making sure that our communities remain strong, united. And I applaud you for taking this, in my opinion, high risk, because I'm sure during COVID, you wanted to have an outlet of some sort, but I guarantee that it's coming with a little bit of stress, especially with what I heard and happened with the website going down when it was the release date. Do you want to, what, since we're ending off, do you want to tell me what actually happened that it wasn't released at the right time?
As soon as we were about to flip the switch, we discovered that there was, shall we say, an improvised explosive device of unknown origin. And people that I've spoken to, I say in the following terms: anti-Semites, question mark. Of all of the kids in the play yard, why pick on us? Maybe it was somebody out there who didn't have a particular fondness for Jews, and we were getting a lot of attention, and they really wanted to do us wrong, and succeeded. And so it took a whole bunch of hired hands in the last minute to put the blocks back together again. And I don't know what this was from. Is it just somebody having fun kicking someone else's sandcastle down? I'd like to think that there was probably something a little bit more nefarious going on. I don't know for sure. Roughly around the same time, big news that there were 300 Israeli websites that had been hacked. And some suspect it was the Iranians getting back for the Israelis who had hacked their sites a while ago. But whatever the case may be, is we don't know if it's the same team or guys that had hacked our site that had hacked the 300 Israeli sites at precisely the same amount of time. But we rebuilt. Exactly 24 hours later, we put Humpty Dumpty back together again. It was not easy, a lot of sleepless nights and stress, as if we didn't have enough of that. And we're back. I mean, we didn't get the momentum that we wanted to get from the big launch, but we got a day later. And we talked about success. I still consider what we did a great success. We launched, we had a lot of attention. People are paying attention to us. And we have a lot of engagements. And so far, I think we're on to much greater, much better things.
I want to wish you all the best with the paper. Let me say it again. I want to wish you all the best with the thej.ca.
Thank you.
I want to congratulate you. I see it as a success already. The fact that we're still going strong, that we are putting information out there, because we know we're never really going to win this war. We just have to, keep moving forward, being who we are, and telling our stories and inspiring our community. And to that, I want to thank you very much for being on the show, and at the same time being one of the main people behind this amazing venture. So thank you very much, Dave. Really appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to kind of throw out there as for people to know how to connect with you, how to write an article for you, how to get involved with the J at some point?
Yeah, anybody could reach me at any time. Dave@thej.ca. Dave@thej.ca. And keep coming back to that website, thej.ca. Visit our Facebook page, like our Facebook page. Follow our Twitter feed at thej.ca. And you will not be sorry. You will love it, and you will have a great time with it.
I really appreciate your time, Dave. Good luck with everything, and Shabbat Shalom to you and your family.
Shabbat Shalom. Thanks again, Ron.
My pleasure. Take care. Have a great one.